Testament, the Order of High Human. This is a game being developed, it's put on Kickstarter, and I'm joined with Tubbymora once again to join me on this amazing game.
What's up,
well,
dudes?
at least it looks pretty good.
It looks good. It looks good.
But there's other issues that we'll be talking about. So over this entire Kickstarter campaign, it still has a decent amount of time left with 33 days, and it already raised 15,000 out of 45,000 as the goal. So there's a lot of money already in like one entire day, and it still has a lot of time to go. We're just going to be going over our thoughts after watching the video and also after looking at some details and talking it over. So Tubby, let's start with the genre of the game, or at least what it's inspired by, which is a lot of different genres, which is really ambitious, as is like Dark Souls, God of War 4, Amnesia, Darksiders, and has like some atmosphere from zombie apocalypse games depending on the time of day, which is just, it's a lot of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like it has a lot of identities it's trying to go after. The thing I'm worried about with a game like this is it's good to be ambitious, but at the same time I'm afraid it might like lose track of what it's trying to achieve as a video game. Well, based on the title itself, it says it's a survival horror adventure game with cutting edge gameplay mechanics. There's some puzzle elements, so it's like it's a mishmash of different types of games. So we're not really entirely sure what it's trying to be or what it will become in the end. From what we've seen, what would you say is the main gameplay? Like if you had to pick one genre, like what's the closest like game you could compare it to?
The closest game, Skyrim, to be honest. It reminds me like a lot of Skyrim. Maybe like with the atmosphere of Dark Souls, that kind of, or actually it kind of looks more like Bloodborne with all the bluer hues.
The bluer hues. Yeah, it looks like definitely first person, like you said, Skyrim. It definitely relies on reactive type gameplay, so like dodging at the right moments. So maybe that's where they got the whole Dark Souls influence too. But other than that, there really isn't much like seen based on the video they've shown us and the screenshots we're seeing. So if we had to classify it, we'd say it's like a dark RPG. We're still trying to figure out where the survival horror aspect comes in. I know there's like horror elements in the game, like scary atmospheres, but I'm not really sure if that's enough to classify as a survival horror game.
Yeah, we would have to see like more, because like even like in Dark Souls, there's like scary looking enemies and stuff in that game. Would you say that would be a horror?
No.
It looks
No.
it looks like really similar in terms of like the enemy concepts, at least a couple that we've seen.
I mean, in Dark Souls, there's a lot of scary, like creepy levels and really grotesque monsters that will give you nightmares while you sleep. But other than that, I wouldn't really think it's a horror game though. It's definitely not along the lines of like a Resident Evil or Dead Space.
Or like Silent Hill.
Or, yeah, Silent Hill, Fatal Frame.
Obscure.
Obscure. Yeah, like games like those, it's kind of, I don't know, I'm just not seeing the survival horror aspect of it. But, you know, I could be wrong. What do I know? Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's being made in the Unreal Engine 4, so the game looks good visually. Like, I don't really have an issue with that. Some like slow gameplay, but that's to be expected for an early game. And the reason it's like I'm kind of confused on saying it's an early game is because from the video that me and Tubby seen, we could be entirely wrong, but Tubby put this in quotations: our investment has already passed $1 million on Testament. So they already invested $1 million in a game, which is just kind of confusing with the $45,000 like goal.
Yeah, it's a little, I wish they would outline what exactly that 45,000 is being used for, because at face value, when you go onto this page, you're gonna think that the 45,000 is just gonna be sent straight to creating the game. Like they basically just created certain parts of the video to like promote it, and they're not really done with the game yet. But with $1 million already invested into this, it's kind of confusing why they even have a Kickstarter to begin with. if that makes sense. Because usually indie developers, they come onto this platform, they really do need the money, or else it'll never happen. Like they can't have the opportunity to make the game, and it's just with them holding $1 million already into this project, it's kind of weird. It's concerning, to be honest.
Yeah, and it seems like from what me and Tubby searched, this is like their first big game from what we looked up on the internet.
On these guys, I've never heard their company. I looked into them. What's their name again? What's the name of their company again?
Fairy Ship Games.
Fairy Ship Games. Do a quick Google search. Fairy Ship Games. The first thing that pops up is Order of the High Human Testament, which is what they're currently have on Kickstarter. But other than that, I haven't seen any other games they've made.
So this is already concerning, and that's, I mean, I wish that was kind of it, but there's a lot more to talk about. Along with this, they're not really clear at all on the platforms that it's going to be coming on. So they just say PC and available later for consoles, depending on how the campaign does. The thing is, you have to go in the comments, because someone actually left a comment asking if it was coming on Epic or Steam, just because of the whole drama going on right now with Epic Games taking all the exclusives. And there's been games in the past that just went from Steam to the Epic Store, where it's just straight out bought by Epic. So they need to be very clear if it's going to be on Steam, Epic, all the PC platforms, because that's a big deal breaker for a lot of people.
Yeah, I kind of wish. I think that's one of the biggest problems of this Kickstarter is it's not everything is clear. Everything is outlined pretty nicely for the most part. Overall, they seem to have an idea of where they're going with the project. But like you said, when it comes to Kickstarters, and due to the past of there being many failed Kickstarters, a lot of broken promises, like my number 9, you definitely have to be very clear and concise with what you plan to do with your project and what platforms you're planning to release it on, because this is it. This is a make it or break it kind of deal. If you do a Kickstarter and you do not live up to what people essentially invested money to pay for, it can come back and bite you in the butt, because it just ruins your reputation overall.
Yeah, especially with that amount of money lying, 1 million already invested, with 45,000 here. It's just, I don't know how I feel about it. I can see if 45,000 was towards the DOC maps that you see at the bottom here, but it's just strange that the 45,000 is just needed at this point. It's just, I don't know. It's already $1 million. You think that would be enough for this type of game? And with all the kind of genres and stuff, we don't even know if it's open world or if it's linear. It seems like it's a mix of both, but it's strange because there's a day and night cycle. We don't really know how that's going to be, because it's not clear on a lot of details, like Tubby said.
Oh yeah, that's true. And they don't really specify where that 45,000 is going towards too.
Yeah, there's no stretch goals listed. A lot of Kickstarters, they have a whole thing laid out of what each type of goal is going to go towards, a new character, new playable character, music, or physical game. The only thing that this one says after you look at the DOC stuff is that based on the campaign results, we will offer some of our DOC as stretch goals, and these lands will be available at the game release. And it's not even clear, is it all the DOC that you see here, all the lands here? This is some of the lands, some of the DOC. So will everyone who backed this, when it passes, get all of it, or is it just a couple of these?
So gameplay wise, we talked about it earlier in regards to what it is. It's trying to be. It's trying to be a survival horror action adventure game with puzzle elements. So take that for what you will. So it's trying to juggle a lot of different game genres, like we said before. But from what we were looking at in the video, there are also a lot of different aspects in terms of the gameplay mechanics that we're wondering about. Go ahead, Nox, so you can like talk about the first one.
Oh man, the first gameplay aspect. Well, there's a lot here. So NPC choices and dialogue, I guess that kind of goes into some of the things. It's not really laid out either. And that's just strange because they mention like some of the dialogue, but it's like you don't see a lot of stuff in the trailer. The linear versus open world stuff, that's something that we also talked about, because in the trailer they also showed a desert that I seen Tubby mentioning it to me, and that seemed like it's an open world part, but it's just so strange.
So many questions about how it's gonna work, because like the forest sections, we can see it being, you know, point A to point B, essentially moving in a straight line, fighting enemies along the way. But as we talked about earlier, the desert section is like, how's it gonna work? Is it gonna be like based on instances of a certain area, or will you like hit a certain point on the map and it'll immediately go to the next area, like do a loading screen? Or is it like seamless transition, or is everything connected in the world? It's just we have more questions than answers when it comes to this game, which is just kind of strange.
And does that bring up like the whole survival aspect going through those linear areas? I could see that being like the whole Amnesia thing, where it's like in a small corridor, so you have sections of travels that maybe between like each land. I could see them doing it like that, going to one land to the next one, and that one kind of having the whole horror aspect. So that could change it up that way. It's just not clear. And along with that, the day and night cycle, which we talked about a little bit earlier, that kind of plays into how is that going to work in this whole world. And then there is the actual gameplay, so the combat. And we've seen a little bit of the combat in the game, and Tubby is more familiar with like the whole Dark Souls and God of War games. And what do you think about that? Is it like, does it remind you of that in any way in first person, or is it something else?
So in terms of the gameplay itself, I can see what they're trying to do. They wanted to allow that seamless transition between different fighting styles. If you look at the section where it says gameplay and mechanics, it seems like their fighting system is laid out pretty well. You basically have your melee, your magic, and your bow abilities, and you should be able to swap between all of them. Visually, when I was watching the video, it looked kind of rough, like when he was actually fighting the enemy. Of course, though, this game is in early development, but I'm kind of hoping that it's going to be a more seamless transition between the fighting styles. Because when if a game is going to be relying on, especially first-person combat, you want to make sure it feels good, like it feels natural. Like when you hit something, it really has that impact. Or when you fire an arrow, you really feel the force and impact as the arrow hits the enemy. Because that feedback that the player gets from their hits registering, it may not seem like a big deal in like these kind of games, but it's huge. Like especially if they want to go like the whole Dark Souls and God of War route. Like when an enemy lunges at you and attacks you, you want to understand the pressure that's coming at you. Like you can just feel and you can anticipate how and when they're gonna attack. This game, we don't have enough information to see if it's gonna play out like that, but I'm hoping that's what they're gonna be focusing on.
Yeah, it's all gonna come down to visual cues too, how good they are. Especially when you're in the first person aspect, the animations and like the feedback from when you're in combat is going to matter even more, since you're seeing it up close.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of get away a little bit in third person, but when you're like seeing things up close, you're really going to be like, people will really notice like the attention to detail and the type of combat. With the weapons too, you have 6 different weapons from the staff. So this is interesting, going with the whole seamless thing, with the melee being the one-handed sword. And then you have different arrow types, such as lava, elasticity, crystal, lightning, and void. So you have all these different types of things and elements in the game, which is pretty interesting how it's like incorporating all of these different battle mechanics. But at the same time, it seems like, oh my gosh, this is like
There's
doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a
like,
lot of stuff.
Yeah. And then there's supposed to be for each weapon, there's at least 3 sets of combos, a special attack, and a finisher. So in total, man, I don't know. That's
a handful.
Yeah, all of that with the how's that going to interact with like the skill trees? Because that's going to be important too.
Like the entire project, you know, it's interesting. The project is very ambitious. It's trying to achieve a lot of different things that make all these older games like popular. But at the same time, you know, we've seen projects that are overly ambitious, such as what was that project called? The one you were talking about earlier?
No Man's Sky.
Like No Man's Sky, where on the surface and you read it, you're like, man, that's a lot they're trying to do. And then when the game came out, it didn't live up to everyone's expectations. That's kind of what we're afraid of about this game. It's like it's trying to achieve so much, but it doesn't really, it can't settle in on an identity of what it's trying to be. And that's why we're a little weary about this project.
Yeah, they definitely need to have some more information. So I guess we can go into the whole tier pricing, since we pretty much got the other stuff out of the way. And starting at the top of the tier, we actually see that $15 will get you kind of a discount and early access, which is cool to the first area at least. The same with the $30. So this time you have the PC digital copy. That is for the really early backers. So in total, it's actually going to really be $35 for the backing of the game, since you only have 37 hours at the time of this video to pledge. So $35 and possibly $40 when it releases on Steam or whatever platform. I don't know, Tubby, what do you think of the price?
So the pledge rewards, man, 15 bucks for a discount of the game. I don't know.
You don't know?
I'm not sure about that.
You don't want that early access pass first area?
Oh, just for the first area? Shoot. The tier list. I'm not sure how I feel about this, to be honest. I mean,
I don't know.
Because already, if it's $30 and $35 for the base game, I feel like that's pretty high. That's very high considering it's one, it's an indie game, and then two, it's from an indie developer. They you know, we've never seen their projects before, so we're really kind of just going in blind with this one. That seems a little too steep. I think if this is your first game and you know you want people to know who your studio is and what kind of work you can deal with, I think like $19.99 would probably be a safer price. Because $35 that's kind of, it's on the pricier side in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to like back a game that you don't know from the history. And then going to like 55 to 65 doesn't really change anything. You just get an extra copy of the digital and a couple digital wallpapers of the game. There's a few, so yeah, it's not like a huge leap.
It's kind of a weak pledge. You just get multiple copies.
Yeah, then we get to the 95. You get the Enchanter tier rewards. You have your name in the credits. So the name in the credits is something interesting because I know a lot of other games, I don't really like to compare, but I guess in this instance it's good to compare to other Kickstarters. Usually the name in the credits is a lot lower, like around the $15 or $10. $95, you get, I don't know, you get everything from before, but you just have your name in the credits and a crowd accessory design, exclusive Discord inner circle, and a downloadable soundtrack. From 65 to 95, I don't know.
No. Now going to 250, digital art book, soundtracks, the full album, unlock the warrior costume, rare treasure box. I don't even know what the heck any of this means.
And the thing is that rare treasure box, I was like looking at it earlier. I was like, oh, that's cool that you get like a physical, but it's like, I think that treasure box is just an in-game box. I don't know. You can look at the bottom to see the images instead of looking on the right side. You can also go to the bottom and can see 160 is technically.
Oh, you're right. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Look at this. 3 times essence crystal for each class. You know, when I see these boxes, I think of something. What's that popular thing game developers like to do? Those surprise mechanics, as EA likes to call them, surprise mechanics. So, that's well, with how loot boxes are implemented in games nowadays, even games that are single player, it's kind of concerning that's actually a reward for the tier list.
And that's a pretty steep price, going from like the even lower, like 95 to 160, and really you're only getting the treasure thing and the full album of the soundtrack. I guess that's physically, because it says downloadable at 95. It just doesn't say physical. That's the thing. It doesn't, like, you notice a pattern here. It doesn't have a lot of details.
It's not
exactly.
You have to say
physical.
clear.
It's like soundtrack.
Yeah, it just says full album. The figures are physical, which is something.
We get to the 440. Oh,
ooh.
Uh-oh.
Okay, well, got that. Let's go to 700.
Oh no, is the figure worth it for 440? You had to have some.
How big is that figure?
You had to have that's like some 2 feet figure.
That freaking PVC high quality figure right there.
700. What do you get? Leader of Men tier
Become a 3D
awards?
model of a giant in the game.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool. You get a personal side quest, and of course you get the stuff beforehand. Becoming the 3D model. So 700. I mean, I know it's expensive to like do stuff in the Unreal Engine, but I don't know. That's still like, usually it's hard to say, because with 3D modeling it is expensive, but I feel like you should get a little bit more for like that price.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not really digging these tiers. These tier lists, it just for me it just screams like they just want more money. To say. That's how I personally feel. And even it even goes up to 10,000. It just keeps jumping. 3,000.
It sounds like a big amount of things when you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5. It's not really crazy when you just get more.
You get more
like
toys,
extra stuff.
Get more action figures.
Yeah, and the thing is, you might notice the invitations you get starting at 1,000 to the launch party. We're not sure if you have to pay for expenses when you go there, like the hotels or whatever, because usually they'll like lay it out in the Kickstarter like, we won't pay for that, or we will pay for that. So at $10,000, Tubby, I expect a hotel, a personal room service.
So you just don't want for invitations. They're literally invitations, like just pieces of paper they'll send to your house.
I mean,
that's it though. That's all you get.
I don't know. You get figures. You get like what? How many? Three figures.
$10,000.
I don't know. That seems kind of sketchy.
And you know what? We're sorry if we sound like pretty negative towards this Kickstarter. It's just there's just a lot of red alerts on this Kickstarter. This is just the entirety of it. Like of course, with any game project, it's not like we don't want that game to be successful or we don't want that developer to be successful. It's not that at all. It's just with the history of how a lot of these Kickstarters have gone from good to bad really quickly. There's just some red alerts that we're seeing, and it's kind of concerning about what direction this project is heading.
Yeah, even if you go to the bottom at the last part, risk and challenges, it says they're committed to launch a new survival adventure genre game. And that kind of confuses because I thought it was supposed to be horror in there. So
it's a survival adventure.
See, that's not even like it's not even consistent with the top parts. I don't know.
I'm at a loss for words.
This does not seem like a $1 million type of investment.
This is like a game-changing project right here. This will be forever remembered as the greatest game of all time that combined all the elements of every game.
I don't know. And I guess one last thing to leave this off. For the first time ever in the history of video games, you can become an in-game character. Which I don't know where that I have no idea why that is there. I know if you like click on it, you come to like another page where it shows an entire contest of being able to kind of tweet it out and you get different amount of points, which is kind of cool for advertising purposes. But in my opinion, that's pretty misleading. There's a lot of other games where you can become an in-game character and you're not even like an in-game like the main character. That would be cool, right, Tubby? If you were actually like
that I haven't really seen before.
Yeah, that would be really cool if you're in like this type of game, like based around the character. You can actually like be that character. Now that would be cool, but this is just like NPCs in the world. Yeah. So I don't know about that one.
And to clarify, we just want everyone to know, again, we're not ragging on the game. We don't have any ill resentment towards the game or the developer or anything. It's just like we said before, there's just things that you should be looking out for when it comes to Kickstarter projects, because especially if a Kickstarter project is not 100% transparent or open about what they're trying to achieve. As a consumer, that should be important, because you don't want to be getting lied to and getting taken advantage of, especially when you're throwing money at these type of projects. So we hope the Testament, the Order of High Human, proves us wrong about what we saw in the project itself. We'd be more than happy for the fact of being proved wrong. And of course, if there's any feedback from you guys towards this developer, or even towards us in regards to how we pretty much broke down this Kickstarter page, just let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for joining me, Tubby.
Yeah, it was fun.
We'll see you next time.
All right, you guys take care.